Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for attending today's IAAPA Education Partner webcast, How Operators Can Spark Joy, a practical and inspiring discussion presented by Vantage. If this is your first IAAPA webcast, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. If you're a returning guest, welcome back. My name is Bethany Graham, and I'll be your host for today's session. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives on IAAPA's Global Professional Development team. I've had the privilege of working and supporting the global attractions industry for the last 15 years. Just a couple of housekeeping items for today. Let's start by addressing today's webcast format. During the broadcast, attendees will be able to view and listen to the presentation, but their microphones and videos will be off. If you're interested in closed captioning, you may enable that along with certain translations by clicking the button at the bottom of the Zoom window. Attendees can submit questions throughout the hour using the Q&A button located at the bottom of the Zoom window. There will be a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you have additional questions, our speakers may also continue the conversation on the Joy Economy landing page. We're recording this broadcast and it will be posted in 3 to 5 business days on IAAPA.org. A link to the recording will also be included in the follow-up email tomorrow. Attendees of the live broadcast are eligible for 1 CEU toward IAAPA recertification. An Adobe Cloud link to a certificate will be posted in the chat and included in the follow-up email tomorrow. Clicking the link will bring you to the Adobe Cloud file where you will have the option to download or print the certificate. At the conclusion of this presentation, a browser window will open with several survey questions. A link to the survey will also be included in the follow-up email tomorrow. We appreciate all who take the time to answer these questions for our presenters. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Una DeBoer, the Chief Marketing Officer at Whitewater. I will turn it over to you now, Una.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I hear that we are breaking records. We have more than 420 people signed up for this, which is amazing. It means you all care about creating incredible guest experiences, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's not a surprise. It's going to be an amazing conversation that is thanks to the panelists we have. So let me get straight into introducing them. I'm going to start with Michael Jungan. He is the president of Vantage. Vantage is bringing this webinar to you. Vantage is a platform that enables guest engagement and drives satisfaction by using technology in parks to enhance the guest experience. Michael has, as with everyone else on this panel, an incredible CV. He worked for Disney Parks and was very involved in the Next Generation Experience project, leading the implementation of initiatives including the Magic Band and My Magic Plus. He then went on to Carnival Cruise to develop Ocean Medallion for Carnival Cruise Lines, which is also a guest engagement platform. He had some time at Aristocrat before joining Whitewater, because Vantage is Whitewater's technology company. Thank you, Olivia, for joining us today. Olivia also has an amazing CV. She's come up through the aquatics part of our industry and started as, your first ever job was a lifeguard, as many people who are in operations started. And I know you still have that passion for safety and for really how you focus on training the staff in the parks. You spent 11 years, Olivia, in your hometown park, and then went to Great Wolf Lodge, where you were the aquatics training manager, and you'd moved to Dubai in 2009 to join Atlantis in the role of operation manager. You also spent 11 years with Atlantis, and just recently, in March 2021, Olivia has become the Director of Operations and Aquatics for the water theme park at Qiddiya, which is a super exciting project in development. Now, please don't ask lots of questions, because I know Olivia's been promised to keep things under wraps, but we are very excited to be involved with you on that project, Olivia. And Sasha, I really want to know, do you still like cooking? Because you started your career in the kitchen, and I think that's a great addition to the panel today, because you've really been responsible for driving food and beverage throughout a number of different resorts. Your CV is incredible. You've worked at the Hilton in Europe, and the Palace Hotel in Italy, the Dorchester Park Lane in London. I mean, it's star-studded, the type of names you have on your CV. You were the fourth most powerful person in the industry in 2019 Caterer Magazine Food and Power list. It's impressive what you've achieved. I know you've been working with Atlantis for a while. You been in Dubai since 2007, so a little bit, is that before you got there, Olivia? You both really have established huge careers in the region, and Sasha is now the vice president of the Marine and Water Park. So he's come out of the food and beverage hospitality side of the industry and into the water park. So this is a sort of a new space, and I know that you're doing great things at Atlantis, incredible development, bringing technology. So I'm really grateful for all of you. There's a lot to be learned. And after that star-studded introduction, let's get into the very first question. So we are going to be talking about the joy economy today. And at Vantage, we're talking about joy as being the guiding star for all of our decisions, because it makes it really simple if you look at things through this lens. And the reason that we're going to what sounds very obvious, joy, is it creates this virtuous cycle. If you focus on joy, you focus on the guest has joyful experiences, they stay longer, they spend more, they feel more connected to your brand, they talk about your brand, and that drives people back into your venue. So let's kick off with a question about how you have created joy in the world-class venues that you have been responsible for. What is it that joy means to you, Michael? And how do you aim to create that, or how have you done that in your career?
I think at foundation, joy to me is immersive time spent with loved ones and friends, free from distraction, with total focus on quality time, creating laughs or smiles, or maybe quiet times. And, I think we all look for opportunities to do that in inspiring venues, in destinations. And, at Disney, I'm really proud of what that organization and team has done to ensure that guests who come to visit Disney parks have totally immersive experiences and remove, the friction that gets in the way of really enabling each guest in their own way, with the people who are special to them, to have those immersive experiences. I can tell you a quick story. As you mentioned, Nuna, I had an opportunity to be one of the leaders in bringing the Next Generation Experience Project, which is my Disney Plus or Magic Band, to life. And it's great to then see how experience enablement evolves. And I was recently part of an audience that got to be first to experience the Neutron ride at Magic Kingdom. So I was a guest experiencing what I had helped to enable with the Magic Band. So I wore, a couple old original Magic Bands, and then the new Magic Band Plus, and was there having a great time with friends, enjoying the venue, enjoying meeting up with other people that I had known, because it was a cast preview. And it was an immersive experience. And even when the ride launched, to have the joy of having the enhanced experience that the Magic Band Plus triggered, lights and vibration, a tickling moment. And we went on to have a great time. And no disruption about, having to see memories, pick anything. And it was actually sometime later that I had an the experience of reliving that and reconnecting with it, and have an image here that we can show that, you know, to be able to bring those moments of joy to life without interrupting it. You know, you can see here that I was delighted by the new ride, but also delighted by what I just described about the Magic Band Plus. So I'm having my arm up, you know, kind of seeing and tickled by what it was doing. And then to see sometime later that memory was captured and available to celebrate and relive that, memorialize it, I think was really quintessential about what it is to, number one, deliver a great experience, an immersive experience for guests, and not interrupting it in a very seamless way, provide an amplified memory of that experience that then guests are delighted to consume. You know, they want to save that, purchase it, and then to share that, you know, to share it with others, to relive and to extend the joy. And I think that's a great example of joy to me.
Sasha, what about you? How do you aim to build joy at Atlantis?
I mean, like, good evening, everyone. I mean, like you mentioned before, I think it doesn't matter really, you know, if you're in the hotel industry, right, and you come from, is it food and beverage, is it, you know, is it rooms, is it obviously the leisure entertainment when it comes now to the water park? Well, I think it's all about guest experience and creating joy, right? Doesn't matter in which field you are, right? Obviously, it's and the main goal is always, right, to put a smile, to create great experiences, right? And I guess when it comes obviously to, you know, the leisure, and then especially when it comes to water park, theme parks, right? You really want to create. What do you want to really create is trying to make the people forget, or the guests forget what problems they have at work, or, you know, to really for those 4, 5, 6 hours there in the park, to really transfer them into a different world, right? So they can really ease up, can smile, they forget all their problems they have, right? That's really our goal over here, right? I mean, how do we achieve this? We've got something which we call it our four E's, right? It's really the educational part, right? When people come into the park, it's the entertainment, the escapism. That's what I mean when you kind of say that you want to make sure you transform it, or you transfer those guests into a different world, right? So they can really escape their you know, the usual issues. Everybody has their thing. So for those hours they're here, they can really enjoy, forget all the issues. And then there's obviously the aesthetics. I know it's not an E, but we kind of put it there, and that's obviously all the theming, right? So I think it starts from the landscaping, and it's really interesting. I've got a few people. I mean, the park here is now, I mean, 15 years old, right? So when and you get a lot of repeat customers here. I mean, even former colleagues who come and say, man, you guys, it's really amazing to see, because it really starts like even with the landscaping. That's when you're trying to, you know, like people come and say they don't feel they're in Dubai, or they don't feel they're kind of somewhere in paradise, right? And for those 3 hours, that's really what you want to achieve, and you automatically put smiles.
There's a real link to that escapism thing, isn't there? You try to take them.
There's a real link, and then if you combine and put, you know, your certain, I mean, some parks will have obviously some characters, other parks have just entertainment. I mean, what we decided to do, you know, we have an area where we put obviously some a DJ up. Then there may be during high seasons, you create like little programs where you have some, you know, jugglers around, or then at the end of the day when people are finishing, you probably have a character maybe in an aquarium, right, who do certain things. And I like what Michael said earlier. I think recently the immersiveness comes more, like you hear a lot about immersive experiences, definitely the last couple of years, right? So, and even when it comes to us, so it's our educational part there, where we're trying to educate our people about our marine life, what we have, and how we take care of our animals, and also creating programs more immersive. We recently changed a couple of programs up where we really focus on like non-touch and you know, where you go and use basically the animals as an enrichment. So showing enrichment program and make the guest part of the enrichment programs, right? So they can.
There's lots of layers to the experience.
And there's lots of layers of experience there. So I think with that, you really create automatically joy, yeah.
Olivia, what does joy mean to you in venues?
I'm going to brag a little bit about Aquaventure. You know, one of the things about, you know, when you think about joy, you think about being around your friends, your family, and kind of being at home. And one of the things that I think we did well and that is still going well is creating that home environment at the water park. And when you think of home, you think of safe, friendly, welcoming. And you know, and I'll use the kids example areas, for example, splashers, you know, Island, Cove, and Lagoon. But you know, creating that space that families can go and they feel safe because you've got a safe, you know, your staff, they've got safety as their number one priority. Everyone watches out for everyone. You've created these areas where parents and children can interact together. And it just kind of creates this kind of home away from home feeling. And you feel good there. You feel safe. You feel you can relax. You can spend all day there. You want to invite your friends and family over. And I think within our industry, when you can create that kind of environment within your water park and literally pull people out of their home and kind of, you know, have them say, yeah, you know, the water park's my home. I like going there and invite my friends. And they've got all these, you know, the feeling of safety, the feeling of having friends over and anything that you would do at home, you can now do at the water park. That's a whole different level of joy. You know,
and it really enforces that repeat visitation, right? Because you want to come back, you feel safe, you feel comfortable.
Exactly. Birthday parties, you know, growing up, my birthday party was always in my home. Nowadays, kids are having their birthday parties at water parks and they're having fun and they go home and what do they talk about? How much fun they had at the water park. And then mom and dad's like, oh, well, let's go to the water park. And the next thing you know, Sasha's kids have got 20 birthdays at the water park in a year.
Hey, I can just think a water park would be a wonderful place for a birthday. I hated doing birthday parties. Let's move on to smiles. So, you know, when we talk about the joy economy, we talk about these pillars and smile, spend, share, and joy and enjoy itself are these sort of foundational pillars about ways to focus on creating more joy. So if we're talking about smile, I mean, our industry is all about creating smiles, but I think we really need to get into guest satisfaction and think, how do you understand what it is that drives the smile in your venue? Because smiles drive 5-star reviews. So how have you done that, Olivia? How have you made sure that you understand which levers to pull, that what drives satisfaction?
I think the biggest thing is empowering your colleagues to be able to do that, giving them the confidence and the resources that they can create those memories, and not only creating the memories for the guests, but creating memories with the guests. And, you know, the easiest thing that a water park can do that really costs nothing is, you know, sometimes you've got guests and families that come to water parks and they want to ride a ride together. Maybe it's, you know, a family of 5 and it's a double 2. So you've got one family member that can't participate, but you know what? Your lifeguard recognizes this and they say, you know what? Let me get someone, you know, calls the team leader over and says, hey, can you cover my position? I want to ride with these guys. I want to ride with mom so that mom can ride. And then mom gets to ride. And the next thing you know, the kids are like, well, I want to ride with the lifeguard. And you've allowed this lifeguard, this colleague, to fix a situation by simply riding a slide. And then, you know, the kids get to talk about it. And the next thing you know, the kids are bragging at school. Well, the lifeguard rode the slide with me and I'm cool. And, you know, so I think just empowering your colleagues to be able to create moments like that. And it's, you know, simple things like that that really, you know, doesn't cost the company anything. And then the colleagues remember it too.
Michael, have you got examples of that? Because I know that you really talk about our ambassadors in the park being our employees.
Yeah, I love everything that Olivia just said. You know, it harkens back to at Disney, I had an opportunity to be the leader for guest communications for a period of time. And, you know, one of the things we would do, we would get, you know, emails and guest letters, and every week we would produce a report about sentiment. And what was amazing is that consistently, week after week, time over time, the number one driver of a satisfied guests who, you know, were communicating to say we had a wonderful time was the same as the #1 driver of guests that were calling to say that there was something that, you know, went a little bit awry, and it was their interaction with team members. And so that really elevates to me what a powerful thing it is that when team members, cast members, colleagues, crew members, when they're empowered and given, you know, incentive and the right information to personally engage with guests in a consistent way, that elevates everybody's appreciation for the experience. And it's not just about, you know, the first time. I think a lot of that is about guest service recovery, you know, because things go wrong or expectations are missed. But having the empowerment for team members and the ability for them to connect to the tools and capabilities that they need to make the guests feel special again. And sometimes that drives even higher satisfaction ratings than a first-time delivery.
Yeah. Sasha, how do you measure this? I mean, I imagine at Atlantis, you have some pretty strong metrics in place. Like, how do you measure satisfaction and know that what's working and what's not working?
Yeah, I like what Mike just said. I think the biggest impact, we would be lying to say that there's always something goes wrong, right? And if you have the right toolbox for your staff, right, to say, you know, this is what you can do, right, and you don't have to call someone and then the guest has to wait for 10-15 minutes, because that creates issues. So don't let them have the opportunity to go on the phone and post something on TripAdvisor like a bad review. Actually turn it around at the same time and give them the tools. And we really there's a big focus about 3-4 years ago where we then said, look, as a business kind of decided, let's give everyone a toolbox, and then only if there's really a bigger case where there needs to be a certain approval level, then it may be elevated, but let's try to fix it there and then. I mean, there's obviously various online platforms we use where we, you know, measure our success and collecting feedback from. Here we do it from two sides, right? You have your hotel guest. They can give you feedback through an online platform what we use, right? I mean, there are different things that we use, Review Pro. Then there's we actually hired recently a guest optimization company. They are now with us for 2 weeks who go through the park and collecting feedback directly from a guest. And then we have a live dashboard and can see what we do good and bad. And they're also using, you know, they're doing mystery shops, and they're also, it's not just a tick box, you know. Usually what you get back, you get some questions and then you just cross on, or was it completed, yes or no. But there's actually, they're going more into detail. If something wasn't done, they're also providing the detail what was not done properly. And if they go through a full guest journey and document that guest journey, so you actually see what an actual guest can feel, and then provide also the feedback. I think it was an interesting comment. I said it's always good when because the park is obviously really big, right? That all staff knows what's going on in the park, right? So that the lifeguard also knows if somebody asks where's the paramedics or where's this restaurant or where's that this lifeguard has the ability, and this is just an example, right, to kind of say, yeah, you just go, you know, quickly explanation so that they don't fumble, or they know, so the guest doesn't have to go through 3 or 4 different.
And that speaks to what Olivia was saying about empowering your employees to really be able to take action in the moment.
I think there's, you know, you can have the best infrastructure. I mean, be the whatever largest water park or here and there, but if you don't have the right staff, then even your best infrastructure doesn't really mean anything, right? So
but support the staff with platforms that make their job easier to actually do well.
Yeah.
I think what you said something that I think is really, really important, and that's an understanding of the guest journey, like how people, from the moment that they're purchasing a ticket to after they've left the park, there are very distinct steps in the experience. And one of the things that we talk about Advantage is removing friction, because there are points in that journey where, you know, like queues or, you know, buying things, or how you know, put things in lockers that can either be easy or they can be a kind of a pain point. So I'm curious, how do you remove those pain points to create frictionless experiences in the guest journey, Sasha?
I think these days is really all about technology obviously will remove quite a few of those frictions, but it's not only, it's again, I think it's a mix of human resources, right? And as well as technology to move those. I mean, I think when the journey starts, when it comes to, and I guess each park will have their difficulties, right? So when you come into the park, that's the biggest thing. And the quicker you get people into the park without queuing, the better, right? So it's for sure one of the biggest ones. And then coming into the park and what do you have in place, right? Do you for our hotel guests, for example, you can do room to charge through a wristband, right? Which then they don't need any lockers. So they usually when you have a hotel guest, they would just come down with a towel or probably just a t-shirt, like very light dressed, and then if they have obviously the wristband, they can just charge it directly to the room. So there's no, they don't need any wallets. So make it as simple as possible. I think guests these days, and I would include myself, the easier you make it for the guest, the more frictionless it will be, right? Don't complicate things. Trying to make it as easy as possible. I know technology sometimes can be a bit of a mystery, right? But I think if it works, then it makes it obviously worthwhile.
And that's a lot of what you were doing. Like, the Ocean Medallion was all about that, right, Michael?
Absolutely. One of the things that Sasha mentioned too is, the access, especially the initial access. And Ocean Medallion, was really focused on ensuring that a really complicated part of the guest experience when arriving at the ship and when re-embarking on the ship at a port or destination, to make that seamless. And Ocean Medallion made it so that all the procedures that needed to be enforced for security, for embarkation controls, to ensure that it was the right person, their documents were in place, all that, was enabled through the use of the Ocean Medallion. So a great example. And what it does then is it frees the crew member, in that case, to be focused on the guest, because all those other checks are being taken care of, and therefore the crew member gets the signifier that says this is good, and also maybe a little bit of information, the name of the guest and some of their preference, so that they can address them personally. And that's what we all want, right? We all want to be welcomed in any hospitality environment, and being able to take care of all those very necessary controls and free the crew member, the colleague, the cast member, the team member, so that they can be focused on the guest. That is golden.
Olivia, I wish I could ask what you're going to be doing at Qiddiya to do this, but you've had to remove pain along guest journeys as well. What can you sort of add to this?
I think one of the biggest things, and it goes two ways, is educating your colleagues on the technology, on the procedures, on what you've got in place, so that they're aware of the different elements in the park. And if a guest does have a question about something, whether it's a wearable, or how can they link their credit card to their wearable, your colleagues being properly educated. But also I think it's important to educate guests in advance. And that's something I think, if I remember correctly, with Medallion, when it arrived to them, there was a little bit of a brief on what it is, but how to use it. And Volcano Bay, when you take the bus over, you get a bit of an education on the wearable. So I think when you've got this great technology, as long as you've got your colleagues are trained on how they can help the guests use it and use it themselves. But then if you can even get ahead of that and educate your guests, so that as soon as they get to the park and they've got whatever it is they have, they already know how to use it. They're excited to use it. It helps build up that anticipation for using, whether it's a watch or, the app on their phone or whatever's in the park that you've kind of given them a sneak peek of. It builds up that anticipation to use it.
But I think it's important that it integrates into the day, that the technology doesn't feel like it's an overlay, but it's actually intrinsic to the experience and it's simple to use. That's something that kind of leads us into the idea of spend, because when you have a wearable that's connected to your credit card, it makes it very easy to go and spend without it being having to get out the wallet. Are there other examples that you've done to create opportunities to drive those spend experiences in a way that it doesn't feel like you're trying to inch out an extra, dollar from everybody, but it's really part of the experience, that you're making it easier to enjoy the day.
I can take that real quick. I think, part of that is not just the transactional enablement with the pay step, but I think a really important element of experience engagement that leads to, guest spend is finding the thing that they most want, whether it's food and beverage, for their allergies or whatever their preferences are. Where do I find the vegan items, and how do I know that they're the right ones for me? Or from an experience, a theater, just to know what the offerings are. I think on the cruise lines, one of our observations was that there's so much breadth of opportunity in every hour that some of the dissatisfaction came when guests realized later that they could have consumed something, but they didn't know when it was happening or that it was happening available. And so giving guests the right information and ultimately even the awareness or an invitation to something that that they might be interested in based on their past consumption behavior or their preferences. And I think those are two really key things that technology can help do.
And I think that links back to Smile. If I remember rightly, there are wait times at Atlantis, so guests can tell, just by looking, how long they might have to wait somewhere, and that level of information. Is that right, Sasha?
Yeah, and yeah, correct. I mean, that does two things, right? Obviously, when the park is very busy, then it also allows people to move, right? And okay, this ride is busy. Let me do first. Let me first do this, right? So it helps with your distribution of the park, like of the guests. And then if you at the same time, if you activate your park properly through entertainment, you kind of manage to kind of get this all going, right? So you don't have all the people on the rides, and like basically what we're trying to do is just reduce the queues, right? A little bit on the rides, right? Or trying to maintain it at a certain time. But I like what you said. I mean, yeah, when it comes, it's all about data, right, Michael? Especially when it comes, I guess, to F&B, to make sure you have those little detractors in the menu where then you think, oh, that's expensive, let me choose the other one. And by not knowingly, actually, this was the intention to, maybe not choose the most expensive one, but then you have something which is not much cheaper, but your mind says, oh, let me go for this, right? Is it like a combo meal or whatnot, right? But we did something different actually here. We did, and if you can actually pull up a picture there. So we created kind of a generosity campaign, right? And that which also, so we kind of a summer here. So there's obviously a couple of stations which we're actually looking at increasing with free water refills, which is part of our Atlantis Atlas project, to reduce single-use plastic. So when you bring your own bottle, you can refill. I mean, it's nothing new, right? But I actually put this out there in order to kind of educate people. And I think, parks definitely over here in the Middle East are quite expensive. And when you go with a family of four, you spend quite a bit of money.
You're spending a lot on just water, which you don't feel is like value add. So getting it for free, now you appreciate.
Correct. And then last year we started for the first time giving free aqua socks, where obviously Dubai gets super hot, right, in the summer, so you have people shadow jumping throughout the park. I think what this does, and look, this is it's actually big investment from our side. If you think, it costs $1 and a little bit, right, $1.50, and we have an uptake in the summer of 90% of our guests, right? They're taking it. They're free. People can come and take them. Some take even 2 or 3 pairs because they think they're quite cute, and then they can just walk around. They're really a one-time use, but I think it's such a huge value add, and it actually did a few things for us. You may even think people may decide rather to come to Atlantis with that, right? And then you obviously increase your revenue directly through a ticket, right? Which is obviously huge. And with little things like this, what we really call a generosity campaign. The same with the phone pouch, right? To make it, we don't give it for free, but as really give it away as a cost price, because then people like to obviously we want people to take pictures while they're throughout the park, right? We don't want to have them in a locker, right? So they can share it on the internet. I think that's something probably I went a bit quick there, but this is what this does with when you implement those kind of things, right? And then it's, you know, the free socks, they stay longer in the park. They wouldn't leave also, right? So I think it does really a couple of things for us, and it really did. When I looked at social media and like TripAdvisor, you do see our guests recognizing that just proves them saying, okay, this was a good step to do.
Well, I think what you did is you identified a pain point. It's too hot to walk, and that's reducing length of stay. And you did something very, you know, the really added value with the socks that meant that by giving a little, you get a lot back. I mean, what impact has that had on your length of stay?
Yeah, I mean, when you look, normally people after a while get them very distracted, right? So I think when I look at the things where normally would have people, and especially also even the hotel gets probably 4 to 5 hours, is really that they would stay, especially during the summer, pretty much an hour or 2 hours longer, right? Which then you get, yeah.
Because that's also time that they're spending and sharing.
Correct.
Olivia, I'm coming back to you to talk about spend.
You know, I'm going to kind of jump back to what I said initially about creating safe environments and environments where the families. To me, if you go to a water park and you've got a family and you know, it's big hectic, and you know, you lose your kid and you can't find them, and then mom and dad get frustrated, and then someone's too short and they can't ride, and then you just want to leave. But if you've got a park and, you know, safe operation, educated colleagues, and you've got the right facilities, and you know, you look at a kids area, if the kids are happy, mom and dad are happy, so they'll most likely stay a little bit longer. And you know, one of the things at Atlantis, when we did the refurb and we introduced Splashers Island, and we put in life floor, and we did individual kid slides that were mini versions of the adult slides. One of the things we noticed is that parents were getting up and out of their chairs, kind of away from their phones, but they would go and sit in the pools and watch their kids. And when you think about that, they're now interacting with their kids. They're spending more time there. So the more time that they're actually spending in that attraction, watching their kids interacting, at some point, someone's going to get hungry. Someone's going to get thirsty. You know, the photographer is going to come by and snap a moment. And, you know, when you leave, you want to get that moment. So I think when you've got the right environment, people feel comfortable, they feel safe, the stress is gone. So naturally, they want to spend the rest of the day there. They want to see the sunset and see that water park in a different manner, you know? So I think just creating that atmosphere alone will encourage people to stay longer. And, you know, you got to eat and drink.
So, you know, we talk about joy being the fundamental reason that many of us do all of this. And that really speaks to that, because you've created that connection as a family. And I think that's why people love that time in the park, because they do get out of their phones and they start doing things together and creating those memories. And that's really meaningful. And I know that you have a great example of how those moments create meaning in people's lives, in the kind of the last pillar of we talk about is share. So you've got experiences of people coming back to the park time and time again, because they love, you know, they love it so much.
Yeah, I had, you know, back when I was at with Aquaventure, we had a family that came to the park, didn't have the best of times. I ended up meeting them, working with them and talking with them, and we invited them back. And if you could throw up that first picture, when we invited them back, this was literally a year after their visit. And you can see on the right, when they came back, they were so excited to be back. We went all out. We got a matching rash vest, and we spent time with them. You know, I rode the water slides with the girls, and we raced, and, you know, their mom took video of it. But we started, we kind of got away from, they weren't just my guests. We actually became really good friends, over the course of the years. When it was Millie or Ella's birthday, the lifeguards would sing happy birthday and we would send the video to them, and I've seen them grow up over the course of the past few years, and last year. If you go on to the next picture, I was really fortunate enough to meet them again at the park, and you can see they've grown up. They were actually tall enough to ride everything now, and we were able to spend the whole day together as friends. And they look at me as a part of the family, and I look at them as my my family as well. But the cool thing about it is we knew, lessons learned is whenever you do interact with guests because they didn't have a good experience, it's a human element. Don't look at them as a guest that had a bad experience. It's, my friends came to the water park, they didn't have a good time, what can I do? And just being yourself with someone leads to this. And the cool thing about it is, man, they love Atlantis and they will tell everyone. And even to the point, Ella, the oldest, did her school project on her trip to Atlantis. So, and it's just when you create moments like that and you kind of just, you become their friend, and it's that virtuous
endless cycle, right?
It is.
Their experience is so great. They tell others, they bring people back into the park.
And as an operator, man, that's a joyful moment. It's cool to have that feeling and to watch, it's cool to watch kids grow up in the water park and be a part of their lives. And they're ready to, they're ready to go back to Aquaventure. I got a message yesterday from Mom.
The internet connection is freezing up a little bit.
Hey, when are we planning the Dubai trip? And yeah, but I think that's a really, I think it's
joy. You're creating joy. And I know it sounds very sort of, purpose and what does that mean? But that's a really live example of the value of joy and focusing on joy. Michael, what do you think about this idea of creating these opportunities to share and creating this joy?
I think that, you just said it, Una, that the joy itself, when properly achieved, is the impetus for people to want to share that with others, because they had that internal satisfaction, especially if it was, sort of a pinnacle sort of experience, and they want to retell it. Just last night, I was at dinner with friends, and, the discussion turned to telling about a great vacation and what made it great. And they now want to know, where was that destination, so that we too can, think about going there. And I think that's what we all strive for. And it's so wonderful when there's a connection that helps to drive that, because that amplifies both Olivia's telling the names of the guest and has that personal connection, and that amplifies the share itself. And it makes it more vivid and clear in the retelling, and then of course in the media and the actual living of the memories and sharing those in social media or wherever, just with family and friends.
There are things that you can do with technology to make that even easier. In marketing, we talk about user-generated content, and that is free marketing, and it is trusted more than any advert you can place. It's how do you create experiences that people want to share, because it's gold for your business.
Absolutely. And getting guests to want to, originate their own content and tell their story in the moment and afterwards is really the new marketing.
Sasha, you probably are expert at this at Atlantis. It's beautiful to take pictures of, so it's certainly Instagrammable.
Well, Atlantis is the fifth most Instagrammable hotel in the world. So it's definitely it's on the list. And I think it's becoming more and more important, right? So there's a couple of things it's really become important. That's why you invite influencer and this is what we do in order to obviously have a wider reach, right? But also the smaller things. I think there was a couple of times we hear personalized service, right, which kind of makes people want to take pictures, right? So what we've done here. And I guess to try to find personalized service in a high volume environment, it's sometimes quite difficult. You know, if you have like, you know, 3, 4, 5,000 people within, you know, your park. So like, how do you manage that, right? I mean, I guess one reason is the Cabana service. That's something you really can actually go over and above. So we had a return customer coming, you know, he comes every year, right? So then we said, look, when he comes back to the Cabana, right? He comes every, you know, 2 days, comes to the park. Instead of having a reserved Cabana there, a reserved time, it always seems like, oh, you can't go in there. It's like, welcome back, Mr. So-and-so, or happy birthday, like you make a personalized message with a name on because you know the booking, you know he's coming, he or she, the family, right? And then we had the team there, and then, you know, singing a song. I mean, this was also a very VVIP customer, but even smaller things where it's not VVIP, right? Just making sure you have this message there, because what that will do is it makes them taking out the phone and then take a picture, right? Because then you already, you know, hashtag Atlantis Arco Venture, and this is, I think, what really everyone wants, right? And I think the same thing you're trying to achieve even with everyone else, right? I think what we've done recently, and because Michael mentioned it before, and I said, like, we got certified recently, actually last year, but for certified autism center. So we had all our staff trained. It's the same thing, right? You have a sharing thing. So this got announced, you know, from IBCCES. Last, I think, yeah, the 2nd of April, we went officially out. And I was also picked up by the Dubai authorities, right? And they're kind of, because they're also driving this. I mean, it's all about inclusions. You know, well, yeah, it's all about inclusion and who can come to your park, right? And it's becoming very, very visible for us when we get guest requests and saying, oh, do you have, you know, can people, especially when it comes to sensory you know, disabilities, right? It became very important, and we created some quiet areas within the park, but also like a separate room in case the guest needs to kind of, you know,
I like how that links back to what Olivia was saying about making this a really safe space for everybody.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is very important, that technology enables that VIP personalized experience to actually be democratized. And, you know, everyone can now have a VIP experience because you know so much more and you're able to personalize experiences. We're running towards the end of time here. And I wanted to be able to quickly run through each of you some like top tips. I've heard about personalization. I've heard about creating safe home-like environments. I've talked about removing friction, giving more and removing those pain points. There's been some great sort of sound bites in this. I'm going to start with you, Sasha. What would be your top tips? Maybe the 3 things you'd like to share to help kickstart this virtuous cycle of joy.
I put right on the spot there. Yeah, and definitely, I think it's the staff, right? I think when it comes down to I mean, it starts with the hiring, right? Let's make sure you get the right staff who are enthusiastic about this industry, right? And it's not just a job for them, right? And are really excited, but then at the same time, give them the opportunities to grow, right? Because everybody wants to grow. So then that automatically creates, like, if you have happy staff, I guess in short, right, it will translate into the guests, right? So I think that's definitely one big tip, and make sure you have a great maintenance program. I know it sounds boring, right? But I think if you have a good upkeep of your facility, again, you know, it makes people come back, and then you get your smiles, you get your repeat visitation. Trying to be innovative with your rides, trying to create new things so people. So when guests come back, right, it's not only a one-time visit, right? So it is a 2, 3, 4 times a visit when people come to the park. So definitely, I think innovation, whatever that means, right? Is it a new ride, or is it just something within the park? It doesn't only have to be rides, right? Like we, I guess, established earlier, like people, how much time you actually spend on a slide versus your total visit in the park, right? They create that experience package. I mean, we have a beach, we have a guest entertainment kind of mini department, right, where people go around, right, and entertain, engage with our staff. And third one,
I'll come back to you. Olivia.
Yeah.
All right.
Olivia, maybe we only have time for 2 anyway.
I got my 3. Number 1, create a safe space. Create a space where people want to stay and spend their money and really interact. Empower your colleagues to be able to make those memories and create those moments. And then also don't look at every guest. I don't want to say a bad experience, but don't look at it as a challenge, but an opportunity, because speaking from experience, it can lead to friendship.
Those are great
and
tips.
memories, and something that's really priceless. Yeah.
Those are awesome. We're going to record that and it's going to be on social media. Michael, what are your 3 top tips for kickstarting this virtuous joy cycle?
Yeah, I love what Sasha said about, finding innovation. And one of the ways, as leaders and operators to do that, I think it's so important to go be a guest. Be a guest in your own operation. See what your team is seeing and see what your guests are experiencing, and do it in an authentic way. There's so much learning that can come from that. And then, enable personalization, both through the team, and support the team in knowing that each guest is looking to be, recognized personally and for what their needs, wants, and desires are. So finding ways to support that is important. And then that ultimately leads to the all-important connections, as Olivia was saying, and so beautifully illustrated, to make sure that your team knows that forming those connections is important, and to support the ability for guests. That's what they're looking for when they're in the park with each other.
Yeah.
So how can we amplify the connections that guests make between the team and the park and the brand, as well as with the loved ones and the friends that they are there enjoying?
Well, thank you. Those were all very practical, and I hope we've managed to inspire people as well. We do have a couple of questions that have come through. A really quick one about Net Promoter as a way of measuring satisfaction. Olivia, Sasha, do you use Net Promoter scores? So yes, no answer.
Yes, it's part of it. Yeah, the NPS, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a good question here about how have you been successful in inspiring the team to really prioritize guests and creating welcoming, joyful, immersive experiences, rather than employees feeling like they're just coming into work for a paycheck? So I think this really talks to what we've been saying about how the employee is central to the guest experience. So Stephen, thank you for that question. Do you want to kick off with that one, Sasha?
Sorry, I got lost a little bit. Which this was from?
From Stephen. So how do you inspire the team to really prioritize the guests rather than just feeling like they're coming in for a paycheck?
Yeah, I think it really comes, I saw another question, which is actually here on the webinar chat, where it says, what is the importance of the staff sparking joy? How do you keep the staff within your staff, right? I think there's a few things, and for us, it's the colleague engagement. It's as important, if not even more than the guest engagement. It's definitely up there the same, because like I said before, without the staff, them being happy. So I think we're working on different things, especially now for the summer. If it's, we as a company, that you get the heat allowance, for example, right? Which the stuff, especially for the hot months, right? Because of the, money definitely makes everyone happy. But then also looking at the rotations, right? Where they normally get 1 hour break throughout, the resort, right? Where we kind of said, let's do, we're hiring a bit more, some more staff, and then create smaller rotations. So the staff, instead of like 1 hour, the time they get 1.5, 1 hour 45, right, in order to allow them to rest, right? Because obviously standing outside the whole time, it's quite hard, right? And it's quite draining for the staff, right? And then also creating different positions. I mean, I guess lifeguards can be quite a tough crowd, right? So you want to also make sure they have a huge responsibility, making sure, like Olivia really mentioned, keeping our guests safe, right? And then, I mean, most recently, because we obviously we grown so fast, right? We tried to find some space where, I mean, obviously you have a cafeteria open for lunch and dinner, but then when it's closed, we had a little space we created a little cafe where the lifeguards and everyone else actually, for that matter, who's working in the park can enjoy a little coffee or a little tea break, right, to keep them kind of engaged, and obviously open policy door, right, so people can just come when they want.
So it feels like a community as well.
Correct. It's important, especially everyone is an expert. Everyone is from. Everyone leaves their family at home, really, right? Especially your lower staff, right? So you want to make sure you make it as nice as possible.
Yeah. Michael, what about you? What do you think about how you really create that ability to inspire people to care about the guest if you're working in a park?
I think empowering the team with the right tools, so that they too have the hassles and the barriers removed for their ability to connect with the guests. And I think the example of embarkation on the cruise ship is a great one. Prior, those security crew members had a responsibility to do a lot of things and to validate, but letting technology do that to empower the team to make the personal connection. And it's not only in that role, but in all roles. We use the reference on food and beverage, so that the server might have insights into the dietary or preferences of the guests who are sitting, or the things that they're celebrating, and then give them the opportunity to make a more magical, deeper connection. And I think anything that can be done to ensure that team members are less constrained by having to figure out processes and navigate through information finding, and empower them to have more time to connect with the guests is really essential.
There is a question here for Olivia. Are there recommended software or technology to assist in providing seamless interface between guests and operations? Can I just say Vantage? Am I allowed to say that? But I do think that there is a point about there are different platforms out there that make this easier.
There's so much out there. I mean, just being at a trade show the past 3 days, it's almost endless possibilities what's out there now. And the great thing about it is a lot of these companies and stuff, you can sit with them and customize so much to cater to your needs, and in turn, cater to your needs to help cater to the guest needs, to help cater to your colleagues' needs. And I think for anybody, as long as you've got the time to sit down and really do your research on that, you can walk away with a great product that in turn will help your operation, will help your guests, and will help your colleagues all together.
Like Vantage. And there's a question here, which I think really talks to what you were talking about around negative comments on TripAdvisor. It's probably one of our last questions. And how do you turn around negative experiences to being positive ones? And what can you do to mitigate negative TripAdvisor comments?
I'll say from experience, you got to be human to human. It's one thing when you get a TripAdvisor feedback and then you cut and paste a general response, but then it's another thing when you actually have that, you pick up the phone and you call the guest and you have that heart-to-heart conversation. I think that's the best thing to do, is when you see something, don't just try to tackle it from a technical, response. Pick up the phone and speak to the guest.
Make it personal. It's all about that personal connection. I think that's a theme that's
100%.
coming through this whole webinar, is how do you enable personal connections, because that's what drives joy. Sasha, do you have advice on managing negative comments on TripAdvisor?
Yeah, similar. I think what we do is more like trying not to have a generic comment which goes back to the guest, right? So read, because there's obviously companies you can see if it's just generic comment, copy paste in, but actually go in detail what the complaint is about and kind of address it. That's what we normally like. For us, we say every day we make sure we go into TripAdvisor, but also responding to the positive comments. Again, not making sure they're not only very generic, but actually there's certain detail which addresses either the positive or the negative comment. And then obviously trying to get back to the guest directly, because what we want, especially the negative comments, we want to actually trying to get hold of the guest to actually establish a connection and trying to turn it around. I mean, once it's there, but I think what it also does, replying even positive, and if you do it very quick, it still drives your TripAdvisor score up as well through the, I guess, algorithm what TripAdvisor has, right? That's you really care about your I guess your customers, and I think that's what you wanted to do, right? So I think for me it's important that, you know, either positive, negative, let's make sure we engage with our guests on those platforms, right? And it's quite a bit of work, right? So it's not just because if you get quite a few comments, you can't just, you know, I mean, do you create a couple of templates, right, for your staff, and again, give them some tools, and then they just fill in, you know, a couple of personalized touches depending on what the comment is, right?
I think that as a marketeer, it's about authenticity of your brand, that you show in every action that you are listening, that you care, and that you're demonstrating that through the way you respond. And I think that's a key part of living your promise. Michael, do you have any last words you'd like to close us out with?
I'd just like to know we're right at time, but I just wanted to, you know, echo one of the key themes here, you know, amplifying that connection, ensuring that we're providing the abilities in whatever way possible for team members to make an authentic connection, you know, the dividends that it pays across the spectrum, from creating joy to creating opportunities to smile, to then engage deeper in the experience, and then to share that is quintessential. And thank you, Una, for being our moderator. It's been fabulous.
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
I wanted to say thank you to all of you. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Olivia, Sasha, Michael, you have so much experience to share. I think it's been really informative. And this idea of like putting joy at the center, make sure it's about the guest. We know this as an industry. There are lots of technologies and ways we can do that. And some of them are really simple. So let me just say, for those of you who are still with us, thank you. You can find out more at thejoyeconomy.co. There is a chapter by chapter description that we release every 6 weeks, where we take these pillars and we get experts to share their perspectives. So the conversation doesn't need to stop here. Please sign up and give us feedback. It's a gift, and we really welcome the time we've had with you today. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Olivia, and thank you, IAAPA, for enabling this. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.